Tonight, bracing for unrest.
Police prepare for protests in New York and Washington ahead of a possible indictment of former President Trump.
Plus, flipping the script.
There's an enormous loss of trust for this institution, the people who serve here. You can't fix that by saying, no, you should trust me.
The North Carolina Democrat out to build common ground.
And seeing the sights.
Everyone should be able to do this.
The ministry helping tourists with physical disabilities conquer tough terrain in the Holy Land.
All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Former President Trump, free for now. Welcome to Faith Nation. In Washington, I'm Jenna Browder.
Good evening, I'm Matt Gelka. Despite recent claims from Trump saying he would be arrested today, as of now, no mugshot has been snapped. The former president is at the center of a Manhattan grand jury criminal investigation.
The district attorney looking into alleged hush money payments to an adult film star ahead of the 2016 election. There was no indication from the DA's office that an indictment would come down today. Nonetheless, Trump urged his supporters to protest. As national security correspondent Caitlin Burke reports, those calls have local and federal authorities preparing for the worst.
As the Manhattan DA's office prepares to wrap up their investigation, those comments from Trump have people thinking back to January 6th, especially members of law enforcement who want to be prepared just in case.
In Washington, D.C., fencing going back up around the Capitol, and in New York City, barricades around Manhattan's criminal court.
NYPD is doing their normal role of making sure that there's no inappropriate actions in the city.
Monday night, Trump posted a video on his social media platform, Truth Social, vowing to defeat all current investigations he's facing.
Whether it's the Mar-a-Lago raid or the Unselect Committee hoax, the perfect Georgia phone call, it was absolutely perfect, or the Stormy Horseface Daniels extortion plot, they're all sick, and it's fake news.
Over the weekend, Trump first predicted an arrest would happen Tuesday in connection to the Stormy Daniels hush money case. While there are signs members of the DA's office are wrapping up the investigation, they've given no indication of a timeline. The Trump team also confirms they have had no official notification of an impending arrest.
Our enemies are desperate to stop us because they know that we are the only ones who can stop them.
Meanwhile, top Republicans are blasting the Manhattan DA's investigation as purely political.
DOJ wouldn't take the case. Federal District of New York didn't take the case. Cy Vance wouldn't take the case. Bragg didn't want to take the case. And then what changed? President Trump announces he's running for president, and Shazam! We're gonna some bookkeeping error from 7 years ago is misdemeanors.
If you have a prosecutor who is ignoring crimes happening every single day in his jurisdiction, and he chooses to go back many, many years ago to try to use something about porn star hush money payments, that's an example of pursuing a political agenda and weaponizing the office.
3 GOP chairmen sent a letter earlier this week demanding Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg testify before Congress, calling his investigation into Trump, quote, an unprecedented abuse of prosecutorial authority. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
All right, thank you, Caitlin. And here with us now is Marie Eisenstein, Associate Professor of Political Science at Indiana University Northwest. Marie, welcome. Good to see you this evening. So there are signs the Manhattan DA's office is wrapping up its case, but no indication of a timeline here. What's your sense? Do you think they'll hand down an indictment, and possibly how soon?
It looks like as if they'll probably be handing down an indictment, if not tomorrow, Thursday. And I mean, this is just what we're getting through most of the news channels in terms of, the grand jury listening to testimony. So I think right now the prediction is Wednesday might be the day that we see a likely indictment.
And Marie, we heard from Republicans just now. We heard from Jim Jordan and Ron DeSantis and Caitlin's story there. They're blasting the investigation as purely political. Congressman Jordan saying the Justice Department wouldn't take the case. Why do you think former President Trump is drawing attention to this case by predicting his own arrest today and calling for protests?
I think it's just more of the same. I mean, some of this is quintessential Trump. He does not lie low in the face of, you know, attacks. So I think that he's just getting out ahead of it. And I think there's a sense to which he's probably correct in that it looks like a witch hunt. I mean, it is true that these charges are charges that the feds neglected to bring, if you will. They failed to bring charges against him. And there's a statute of limitations on these charges. And that was 2 years. The statute of limitations was 2 years. So to get around that, there's some legal kabuki going on. So President Trump can be charged.
Marie, the alleged hush money case in New York is just one of 4 cases Trump is being investigated for. Is there more of a legal basis for indictments in these other 3 cases?
I'm not as familiar off the top of my head with those other cases, but my suspicion is that there's as much there as there is in this case, and I think that that it is more politically motivated than not. I think that there's as much in all of these cases in many ways as there was in if you go back to the Russia, the dossier, which we all now know was completely fabricated and completely false. So I think that there is, if you're a Trump supporter and you're looking at this, you say to yourself, there's been nothing but attacks against this individual since he dared to run for office and then did the impossible, it seemed, in 2016 and won. And so from that date on, there has been just an unending line of attacks.
Marie Eisenstein at Indiana University Northwest, thank you very much.
Thanks, Marie.
Thank you.
Well, in other news tonight, Americans could soon know more about the origins of COVID-19. President Biden signed into law a bill declassifying government intelligence on the pandemic's origins. The measure passed the Senate and House unanimously. Some scientists and government agencies believe COVID started in a lab and was somehow released to the public. Others say it spread through animals. The intelligence is set to be declassified within 90 days. An outlier among America's politicians. One North Carolina Democrat is using a unique approach to connect with constituents and fellow members of Congress.
Are you trying to tell me that it's divisive on Capitol Hill?
Just a little bit.
Unlike others, House freshman Jeff Jackson is on a quest for common ground. I recently spoke with him about why he's steering clear of divisive rhetoric and gaining popularity across America.
Still brand new to Congress, and recently I got something totally wrong, and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do differently going forward because of what I got wrong.
With this simple social media video, freshman North Carolina Congressman Jeff Jackson said something you just don't hear from many politicians. He looked into the camera and said he was wrong.
I knew this person by reputation, and it was not good. I had seen them on TV and Twitter, and it was clear this was not someone I was going to be able to work with. But it's important to be polite, so I put out my hand and said, "Hi, I'm Jeff Jackson. I'm the new guy from North Carolina." And then we talked for 20 minutes. This person is brilliant.
Jackson is talking about preconceived notions he had about a Republican member of Congress he had just met. While he doesn't say who he wronged, his refreshing honesty caught on, with more than 2 million views across multiple platforms.
I've been surprised, frankly, that I've gotten the reaction that I have by just looking in a camera and not trying to make people angry.
It's a running theme in Jackson's videos, open honesty and the willingness to admit when he's wrong or doesn't know something. The North Carolina Democrat is far from the first politician to get attention on social media, with many tending to be firebrands looking for engagement.
We know we're going to get no help from the Democrats.
I got to say, when Biden talks about foreign policy, I've never seen a president like this in my lifetime, where he screws it up every day. Like he just says things. This is a guy you wouldn't let handle the remote control to your television set.
My existence make you mad? Does the fact that, yes, I am a mouthpiece for the people of New York's 14th Congressional District upset you? Well, I have help for you. Call 1-800-CRY NOW.
Jackson is looking for something else entirely. Common ground.
The state of the common ground is more than you think, more than we let on, more than we want you to know, because so many people on both sides benefit from a discourse of conflict. Conflict is what gets us invited onto cable news. Conflict is what helps us to raise money. If we tell a story about, hey, there's this bill you didn't hear about, but I was able to work together with the other side, it serves none of the short-term incentives that exist here for a lot of people.
It's resonating.
This is probably the best piece of political media I have seen in a long time.
And I just gotta say, for the first time in my entire life, I feel like I've met a politician that's honest.
Jeff's account is actually really fantastic.
Even with Republicans. With more than 300,000 followers on Instagram and more than 1 million on TikTok, Jackson says he's finding an audience from both sides of the aisle.
We've been underestimating the American people and their capacity for nuance and detail and substance.
Jackson credits his time in the Army, where he still serves in the National Guard, as the place he learned to work with anyone, no matter their creed or color. The Bibles in his Capitol office are gifts he received for serving in the state legislature. Another place he preached teamwork came much earlier.
My first public speaking experience in my entire life was through youth group during our Youth Sunday when I got to lead the children's sermon. I had told them, try to be like Jesus for a day. And he came up afterward, he goes, Jeff, they're supposed to be like Jesus all the time. And I said, I hear you on that. They're 5 years old. Let's shoot for one day. Let's see how that goes.
His social media success would make some full-time influencers jealous. But while you won't catch Jackson doing a viral dance craze, he hopes his straight talk can influence more people to get engaged with government.
I think it's important when it comes to rebuilding the loss of trust, because there's an enormous loss of trust for this institution, the people who serve here. You can't fix that by saying, no, you should trust me. You got to fix that by starting with transparency, which is as simple as saying, here's what I did today, here's what I'm going to do tomorrow. That's where trust starts.
Now here's the elephant in the room, TikTok. I asked Jackson about using the app because of the China connection, spying concerns, and it possibly being banned, and it is already banned on government devices. Jackson says all of those concerns are valid, but since it's one of the only ways to reach younger constituents, he keeps the app on a non-government phone, with TikTok being the only app. He agrees, though, there's a chance it could be banned. TikTok's CEO is set to appear in front of Congress on Thursday.
All right, great interview, Matt. Well, turning overseas tonight, the head of NATO says there is reason to believe Russia asked China for deadly aid in its ongoing invasion of Ukraine.
We haven't seen any proof that China is delivering lethal weapons to Russia. But we have seen some signs that this has been a request from Russia, and therefore our message has been that China should not provide lethal aid to Russia.
The remarks come as Chinese President Xi Jinping meets in Moscow with his Russian counterpart. President Vladimir Putin today claiming China has a peace plan that could put an end to the fighting in Ukraine if U.S. and Western allies are ready to negotiate.
Well, coming up, a swiftly spreading deadly infection. What you need to know about to stay safe in the face of a fungus the CDC calls concerning. Next.
Welcome back. A deadly fungus is spreading at an alarming rate across the United States. The CDC warning of a, quote, dramatic increase of fungal infections spreading quickly through healthcare sites. The first cases in the U.S. were reported back in 2015, but the CDC says reports of the drug-resistant fungus nearly doubling in 2021, and cases continue to rise. Called Candida auris, the fungus is a form of yeast that doesn't cause any symptoms in healthy people, but poses a big threat to sick patients with weakened immune systems.
So joining us now to talk about this, CBN News medical reporter Lori Johnson. Lori, this certainly sounds concerning. So how urgent is this rapidly spreading fungus as a public health threat?
Well, Matt, it appears that this C. auris is the latest so-called superbug, and these are pathogens that are resistant to medications commonly used to treat these infections. Not always, but sometimes, and so that's very concerning. Another thing is, as you said, the sharp increase in cases, a 200% increase from 2019 to 2021. But, you know, anytime you hear percentages, it often helps to look at the raw numbers. And in this case, we saw 500 cases in 2019 and 1,500 cases in 2021. So while that is a 200% increase, we're still talking about 1,500 cases in a country that has a population of 330 million people. So most people aren't affected by this. We're mostly seeing the affected people who are very sick in the hospital or nursing homes who have very weakened immune systems.
Yeah, that's great perspective, Lori. Just curious, why did this seemingly spike the way it did?
Well, it's mostly because this C. auris has gone undetected up until this point. And when it's undetected, then hospitals and nursing homes really can't take the proper precautions. It's very difficult to detect with standard lab tests. So hospitals and nursing homes are being urged to use special blood tests to determine which patients might have this infection. The symptoms are very vague. It's fever and chills. And so when it's detected, then proper precautions can be made to sterilize the rooms and to isolate the patients and so forth.
Well, Lori, while we have just a few more seconds remaining, we're going to see $32 billion spent worldwide to try and stop or at least tamp down the rate of hospital infections. Have we learned anything since the pandemic? Has anything changed?
Well, you know, hospitals are constantly trying to keep their infections under control. Anytime you get a lot of germs in one place and a lot of very compromised, physically compromised people in the same place, you're going to see infections. But we saw with the COVID pandemic that hospital staff wearing masks all the time, universal masking. And now that the pandemic is winding down, hospitals are wondering if they should keep those masks on their employees all the time moving forward to mitigate infections of all types in the future.
Right. All right, CBN medical reporter Lori Johnson. Lori, always good to see you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll be right back. All right, well, climbing steep hills and navigating rocky paths, hiking in the Holy Land can be hard.
Yeah, that tough terrain making it nearly impossible for those with physical disabilities to soak in the sights of Israel. But as Paul Strand reports, that's changing due to the work of one ministry.
Israel's many things to many people, but one thing it's not really is all that accessible to people with disabilities. What with the rough ground, slippery rocks, big steep slopes. But there's a group right now working on making sure that the disabled can go anywhere in this land that anyone else can. Dr. John Delancey leads tours combining Israel's archaeology, history, and the Bible. But he couldn't include tourgoers with physical disabilities.
We offer multiple Israel trips a year, but no accessibility for people who can't walk.
Then Delancey discovered Luke 5 Adventures, a ministry grown to 9 U.S. chapters that help those with disabilities experience the rugged outdoors using Jolette chairs like this one.
We just completed our 800th hike in the last 3 years.
CBN News hit the trail with them in Ohio in 2021, and more recently, Israel, as they partnered with Delancey's ministry.
I thought right away this was an answer to prayer. God orchestrated this. This opens the whole new door for really going anywhere.
Delancey and Luke 5 Adventures tested that idea in Israel with Victoria Odom. She's fought her way back from traumatic brain injury and total paralysis.
I've relearned step by step.
Though not enough to tackle certain terrain.
I can never walk on slippery rocks or climb up trails.
For people like Victoria it's not even a dream to go from here over there, because it's not possible. But what we're doing makes the impossible possible.
Whitney Blackston came along to help Odom since Blackston had witnessed how Luke 5 Adventures helped transform the life of her daughter, Emerson.
She's completely blind and hearing impaired, nonverbal.
On hikes in the Jolette, Emerson came to know God's wonders in nature.
We could tell her what a tree is. She's blind. She really doesn't have a concept of what that is. But now she can get out there and feel the tree, and actually feel the leaf and the leaves and the wind in her face.
Or for the first time, touch water in the wild at a place Emerson revisited in fall of 2022.
And as I was telling her that Jesus is her rock, she said, "Jesus, I want." And so we baptized her that day.
Beginning their Israel tour, Blackston and the others aiding Odom came upon an immediate challenge.
That first day we stepped off and there's this steep, deep cavern that you couldn't even see the bottom. Victoria wanted to go, so we tackled it.
Just to see that, I go, this is amazing. a God thing, and Victoria, wow, she's experiencing exactly what we are.
Masada was a really nice challenge as well.
Masada, the steep mountain where Jewish rebels made their stand against Roman legions almost 2,000 years ago.
It's relentlessly uphill for a long, long, long time.
It's up probably 500 or 600 feet in elevation, and they conquered it just amazingly.
It was incredible and will go down as one of the most amazing memories.
Talk about the uniqueness of this ministry. I don't think any other type of wheelchair apparatus ever made it up the Roman ramp there at Masada.
Other days, the group raced Odom and the Jolette like a chariot in a place real chariots once raced. And they took her on a pre-dawn hike with headlamps.
It just opened everything. I was like, I can do this. Everyone can do this.
Don't dismiss your dreams.
Now Delancey's ready to make dreams come true for others.
To offer trips to Israel on a regular basis with this amazing one-wheel wheelchair.
His ministry hopes to buy at least one Jolette and keep it in Israel for his tours and others. And he's already planning another trip with the help of Luke 5 Adventures for 2024. Schwieger, its founder, points out 99.99% of God's extraordinary creation is outside of where most severely disabled people can reach it.
And that's not acceptable.
Everyone should be able to do this.
And now they can get their chance.
The bottom line of Victoria's adventure here in the Holy Land is never tell yourself, no matter what shape you're in, that something's impossible for you. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from Jerusalem.
All right, thank you, Paul. And still ahead, middle school students banding together to provide high-tech help for one teacher's daughter. The heartwarming story next on Faith Nation.
Welcome back. A group of STEM students at an Alabama middle school are helping to put a dream within reach for one little girl.
Russellville middle school kids are building a prosthetic arm for a teacher's daughter. 4-year-old Sloan was born without her left arm, but she touched the hearts of all of the students at her mom's school. The students banding together to help build a prosthetic arm from 3D printer materials held together by screws, Velcro, and rubber bands. Sloan says she's excited to take her new arm to preschool next year. And the first thing she plans to grab, a piece of pepperoni pizza.
I don't think I can think of something better to grab. That's great. Good on those students.
Good for her. I love that.
Well, that'll do it tonight for us on Faith Nation.
Have a good night.